Welcome to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations, a podcast that celebrates diversity and representation in children's storytelling, entertainment, and edutainment. I am the host, Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. On this podcast, I chat with authors and creators of children's books, entertainment, and edutainment. This is also a collaboration with the Ottawa Black Book Club. So welcome, Saloni Surah. Welcome to the Conversations podcast. My name is Louisa. I'm the host of this lovely podcast. And so, 2024, Saloni, I'm excited to say you are my first guest for the year. Tell me about yourself and what inspired you to write this story, because I read about you and it said you're a doctor.
I am, yes. Well, thank you for having me as your first guest of the year, but I am a doctor. So I graduated from medical school 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago, and I started writing 13 years ago. So I was doing my PhD at that time on HIV and drug use. And it was the first time, don't get me wrong, it was hard because PhDs are hard and I wasn't doing the easiest of PhDs, but I was able to manage my time. And I was still doing kind of some evening shifts, but I was doing less out of hours. So that gave me space and time to write and explore my creative interests. And against the background of, I don't know whether you've done any kind of scientific writing, it's very formulaic, you know, you've got your aims, methods, hypothesis. I started writing about dragons and fairies and all of this stuff. So it's been a long road for me. I did courses. So I did, was living in Ireland at the time, did courses with Sarah Webb in Ireland, conferences, crime writing courses. I paid for a lot of feedback, went to writing groups, writing classes, went to a couple other courses in Ireland and groups, and submitted to agents. So I did all of that. But then life intervened. I took some time out of work and I had 2 young children, and I submitted, this is my 4th book. I'll tell you a bit more about it in a minute, but I submitted it to had a couple of agent one-to-ones, got really great feedback. And then last time, it was probably 18 months ago, I kind of was told that in this age group by that agent, they were mostly looking for celebrities. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. So I decided to self-publish. I have a PhD, so there was no way I was going to edit it myself. So I went to a publishing company, so they kind of, you know, do the illustrations and edit and package it up for me. So yes, that's how we got here with Flora. And she is a book loosely based on my husband's friends and family. So my husband is Italian and my mother-in-law used to keep chickens. And when we met, she had 3 and we used to talk about them a lot because they were, you know, a topic of conversation. And one day, one of the chickens went missing, and my husband joked to his brother that there'd been a murder in the backyard, and his brother was like, "What?" And then he realised it was the chickens. They have since all gone, so I think the foxes got them. But yes, there's a lot of his friends and family members in the book. I've been a little naughty. Change the names, apart from Flora.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, why did you set the book, since you live in the UK, why did you set the book in Florence?
My husband's from Florence, so that's why. And my mother-in-law lives in Florence, and you know, I've worked with people from all over the world. So I'm a HIV sexual health doctor, and that's one of the things that I loved, was meeting people from all over the world. You know, I felt very privileged to do that, and meeting people from all different backgrounds. And it's something, you know, I've moved back to where I grew up, and it's a lovely city, but doesn't have that diversity. And I slightly worry for my children because I want them to be exposed to all these beautiful cultures and, you know, people who have had totally entirely different lives to them. So yes, it felt right. You know, my children speak Italian. Well, they're little. My eldest does. Actually, my youngest does too. And yes, I mean, it was based there. It was based on the chickens, and I plan to write more. But you know, Florence is a wonderful city, and hopefully some people will find out a little bit about Italian culture. I mean, it's not massively full of culture, but there's a little bit, like gelato and biscotti and pizza and that stuff. And you know, I love travel and different cultures. So yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So I noticed that at the beginning, you know, you said, hold on. I'm not going to give away too much about the book, so I'm going to let you do that. But I liked here where you said, I'm sick of reading books about boy detectives and solving cases for free. So most of the books I grew up reading in the 80s had boy detectives. Yeah.
I mean, there was Nancy Drew, wasn't there? So
Nancy Drew. I discovered Nancy Drew when I was in high school. But before then, we had Famous Five, but there were boys in Famous Five. We had Secret Seven. There were also boys in Secret Seven. So I discovered Nancy Drew when I was in high school. But there used to be that trend for the longest time. When you talk about a child detective, everybody automatically thinks or assumes it's a boy. So I like the fact that you use the girl here. So why a girl?
Thank you. Well, I'm a girl, so you kind of write from your point of view. And also, look, I have a son and a daughter, and I want healthy role models for both of them. And there's some wonderful female role models out there, but for a lot of our children, it's about how you look or what you're selling, and not wearing a lot, and that's not what I want for my children. I want my son to see healthy female role models, women that are going out there and doing things, and who may be a bit bookish and a bit quiet. Like, I loved books, and that was probably me, a bit quiet and shy, and I want my daughter as well to know that you don't have to be this way or that way. You don't have to be perfectly made up, and it's not all about sex and your body and selling yourself. So I looked after so many young people coming through the sexual health clinics, and absolutely beautiful, gorgeous girls that just wanted to change part of themselves and didn't value themselves, and maybe were doing things that they didn't really want to do but to be liked. And so for me, it's also wanting to inspire and give those healthy role models. So it certainly wasn't like boy bashing, but it was like I want a healthy role model, and I'm a girl, and Flora in real life is a girl. I didn't write the book for her, but she was the perfect age and in that group, and I just thought let's just do this right from what we know. Now I will write, there's one for my boy that I need to do about farting elf, so he'll be a little boy elf. But yes, probably my first 4 books are all female led.
Okay. How important do you think representation is in children's storytelling?
I think it is important, very. So, I was talking about different cultures and exposure, and certainly, I'm going back to where I grew up here. It was not very diverse when I grew up, and you think at the time that's okay, but I was looking around schools for my son, and some lovely schools, and some of them are not diverse, not from the want of trying, it's just the area and the people that live there. And for me, I wanted a bit of diversity for them. So I think it's important that we have everyone represented, and certainly in my second book, The Last Fairy Guardian, I have more of that. This was obviously what came out, and this is a really fun book, but that is a book about clipped wing fairies and bullying, and I have darker skinned fairies and fairies who've lost their wings, and that for me was important. It wasn't, I didn't want to do it for the sake of it, so it didn't feel right with this book, but certainly in that book I was like, no, that this, I want to see that diversity.
Okay, so talk to us more about the characters in this book, because I find her relationship with her little brother Marco I find it fascinating. Yes, I mean, all little brothers are mean.
They are, aren't they?
Talk to us about the characters in this book, because at a point I read it a while ago. So there is Flora, there is Marco.
We've got Flora, we've got Marco, we have the suspects. So we have a pirate, we have a hunter, and we have a cat-loving neighbor, and we have the owner of the chicken. So they're the main ones, and then obviously Flora's little brother Marco and her mum. So they're a motley crew. I had fun creating them and embellishing people's characters, and I have a funky imagination, so it was a lot of fun for me, and I've been out in schools the last week taking pictures, and it's been really wonderful to see the children enjoying it and embracing the characters and loving looking for gold eggs. So yes, there are interesting bunch, loosely based on real life characters, but very, very, very different.
On page 7, there was something you said, and I remember I made a note.
Yes.
I made a note there where you said, so this is where she was riding her bicycle and picking up flyers.
Yes.
She says, a black cat with piercing green eyes walks across the path, stops and stares at me. The green eyes make me shiver and I look away because cats make me feel funny. They seem to know things are going to happen before they do. And I don't like that. I like logic and things. So I made a note here that cats always seem to know something you don't. I'm terrified of cats. I shamelessly admit that. I prefer dogs. So I'm terrified of cats. But there is something about cats, and I was going to ask you that question. They always seem to know something you don't know.
They do. Well, I mean, I just think animals do, don't they? I mean, we all have sixth senses, and it was something I used a lot as a doctor, where you just go, somebody walk in, you go, they're just not right, and everything on paper would be right, and you're like, I'm just not happy with this. But cats in particular, I mean, I think animals do, but cats in particular, there is something about them, and I really wanted to convey that. I don't know, I don't have cats or dogs, so spoiler, but. Yes, I just wanted to convey that. And the neighbour in this, there is a real cat, just the one, but I obviously went to town with a cat in this book.
Okay, and you brought in a bit of fantasy.
Yes.
When we're talking about, for people
the flying boat, yeah.
The flying boat. Yeah, so talk to us about the use of fantasy in your story.
Well, I use fantasy a lot, and I think for me, it's escaping. So I used to daydream tons when I was in school. I spent most of my time daydreaming, and I obviously started writing when I was doing my PhD, and it was very scientific writing and incredibly different. So for me, it's a form of escape. I want to play and have magic and live in these wonderful worlds, and I would love to fly in a boat. Wouldn't it be amazing to see flying boats? That's what I keep on saying. So I asked the kids, would they prefer a gold egg or a flying boat? But I would love to fly in a boat. It would just be incredible. So I did mix a bit. And, some agents like that, some don't. I have another one, which is a YA, which is fantasy detective as well. But yeah, I like to mix. I don't want to stay in boxes. It's a bit of fantasy. It's not full on, but there is a little bit. But I like magic, and I like magic. It's about magic and play and escaping everyday life. It's also about dreams. This is a book about a girl reaching for a dream who's not going to be pigeonholed. So that was the thing also with the girl is, we can get so pigeonholed at times, and who's just going to go, look, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to give up. And for me, that's really important. As a method to give to children. I've looked after so many adults who've had such difficult lives and, who maybe haven't ever had anybody to tell them that they can do things or that anything is possible and that they deserve dreams and deserve good things. So, part of me writing children's books is that, having looked at the other extreme is children hopefully reading it. And I have a lot of adults who've read it going, yes, I have a dream and I can reach for it and I can keep on going. And it may not be easy, but, it is possible.
Okay, thank you. What do you think fantasy does for children, for the child's mind?
It's imagination and world building. So obviously we want them to be in real life, but childhood's a magical time when they should be dreaming and imagining, and I think that's an important part of childhood, is to think that anything is possible and to believe in things that may not be true. And in a way, children are a bit like cats. They are extra sensitive. They've still got that sensitivity that maybe gets knocked out of us, and those extra special senses as we get older and end up having to conform and school and uniforms and all of that and jobs. So I hope it helps them to dream, and who knows where it takes you. I mean, okay, you may be dreaming about a gold boat, but you may be dreaming about the next invention that's going to make the world better, or a new way to make electricity, or a new way to make cars that don't emit emissions. Do you know what I what I mean? So who knows how these things start, and how, you know, some of the big inventors of the time, maybe they were children who dreamed a lot or had dreams of their inventions and everyone told them it was crazy. Maybe we will see a flying boat in 10 years' time.
I hope we do.
Me too, me too.
I hope we do. So talk us through your writing process. How long did it take you to write this book?
Okay, so I can't give you a straightforward answer to that, because I've been writing for 13 years, and I wrote it and had a baby and came back and picked it up. So I can't remember. I mean, can't remember, because I also then, when I picked this one up, and whilst this one was in pre-publication or pre-production, I was working on my fairies, so I often mix. And this one was better plotted. So, you know, when you start writing your first one, you just write and you don't know what you're doing. And then you start doing the courses and the conferences and getting feedback, and you learn. So that's why you do it, is to learn and to get a better writer. And so when I went back to do it this time, it was much better plotted. It wasn't a big rewrite, but it was much better plotted. I'd had feedback. Certainly now with my writing process, I have children. So, you know, I have 2.5 days a week to write, and possibly Saturday mornings if my husband has them or takes them to playgroup. And, you know, I plot it this time with chapters and story, whereas I didn't in the early days. And, you know, work through the characters and their backstories. So, you know, certainly about to pick up my dragons, my first book, that was just fun. But, you know, I had no idea what I was doing with plots and characters and all of that. When I do write, I sit down at home when everyone's gone. Often I go to my local library. I've got a really lovely local library, and the staff are wonderful. And I am not somebody who's going to sit there all day. I'm like a 45-minute, an hour, possibly an hour and a half with a break. And I will try and do a bit of meditation or breathing just to clear my mind and center myself beforehand. And then I'll have a focus in at the chapters and what I'm trying to do, or whether I'm just freestyling it. I love going to writing groups and getting writing prompts, because it always surprises me what comes out, and the other bits of the story that come out, or other stories. I've got lots of other little short stories sitting there that I'd love to pick up, and adults books.
Okay. So what do you wish you knew before you started writing for kids?
I remember at the time, because I got told a lot to write, and it was a funny story. I remember being a medical student and being told my granddad had died, and I ended up at a psychic. It was my first backpacking holiday, and she was like, you know, you're going to be a writer. And I was like, I don't think so. My life was planned out. So I kind of wish I'd known that I'd done a writing course. And I remember looking when I was seriously thinking about it and not finding anything. Now, those were kind of before the days of proper internet like now. Do you know what I mean? And that might have helped me structure it. But, you know, maybe I also just needed to freestyle and let some of it out, because, you know, it is therapeutic. It is a form of clearing and letting go of stuff. I think I probably wish I'd known it was going to be a lot harder and a lot longer than I realised. I mean, it's wonderful, but it's not easy to get to that book stage, you know, whichever route you go down. So, you know, I could have kept on going on with the agents, but for me, with where my life was, I just wanted to move on. And I had decided I would do these two and then reevaluate. And I didn't want to wait 2 years. So, you know, if your book gets picked up by a publishing house, it's 2 years. And I thought, you know, I just didn't want that. I wanted that onwards movement in my life. So, you know, I think there's some wonderful things, but in some ways it can be quite a closed shop, you know, with that process, the time, even getting certain reviewers to look at you, or people to help with social media posting, you know, because there's a certain kind of snobbishness where if you're self-published, you know, you're not as good. And that makes me incredibly sad, because there's a lot of people I know who know me as a writer and won't, because I'm self-published, you know, help out, or there's that slight kind of, you know, looking down. And I understand, because, you know, you can be anybody and put a book out on Amazon. But, you know, that's also wonderful too, because it gives people the opportunity. that wasn't there before and opens up things, it does make it harder to get noticed. So, you know, good and bad points. Really, I wish I'd know. I mean, look, when I published, I didn't have a clue about marketing, and you know, I had, because my work stuff not been on social media and really shut that down. So that was a big change in selling. You know, I just like to talk to people, so I'm not great at selling, and you know, I have children, so I can't sit on social media all day every day. But it's been a journey.
Yeah, I think from my personal experience, what I've come to understand about publishing is that I remember when I wrote my first book, and I felt that, oh, now that I've written this book, once I send it off to a publisher, they're going to be so excited about it. You know, when as all writers, when we write books, books are like our babies. No, books are our babies.
They are.
And then we send it off to publishers. Remember, we have this emotional attachment to our manuscripts. But for a publisher, publishing is a business.
Yeah.
So your manuscript, I always tell people, your manuscript might be excellent, but publishers want to publish what they can sell. So they might have your manuscript. Oh, Saloni's manuscript is so good, but I can't sell it. Because I remember back in the day when I was in the UK and I had sent off my work, I had this literary agent reach out to me to say, I like your work, Louisa, but my problem is I don't know how to sell it. This was 2005. Yeah, she said, because back then we didn't have a lot of Black stories out there. The Black stories we had were written by established authors, celebrities. And she said to me, I don't know how to market your book. I don't know how to sell it. So that is the challenge I'm having. So that's why you can see, I think, who was the celebrity that wrote a book, and all that the book had were just selfies of hers, just her selfies, and it sold. So that's where I came to understand that, you know what, publishing is a business. Sometimes it's not about quality. And then traditional publishing, yes, I think there's this snobbishness, especially when it comes to book awards and so on. When it comes to awards, they say no, the only people who are eligible to send their books are traditionally published authors. So you're trying to tell me now that my book is only eligible if a publisher has read it and feels that, yes, this book is worth investing my money and I can sell it. Whereas I've written something really good and I've chosen to self-publish, and now you say I'm not qualified to put in my book. Yeah, so that's one thing I learned about traditional publishing and the difference between that and self-publishing. When I started writing my children's books, I started it as a passion project because the goal was to educate children about the continent of Africa through great stories. I put that out, same thing. They started with word count. Your word count needs to be not more than 1,005. And I said, how do I tell a good story with so few words? But through the years, I've learned and I'm still learning. I think it's still a learning process. Yeah. So talk to me about your experience with agents. I think you sent did you send your book off to only literary agents or literary agents and publishers?
I might have done, I think it was mostly agents. There's not very many publishers that take them on now. So I know, like, certainly in Ireland, I had moved back by the time I came to publishing to the UK. And there are more kind of smaller publishers in Ireland that would take on, but I know I'd sent it to somebody and they said, look, they're looking more for Irish stories. And obviously this was a non-Irish story based in Italy. So I mean, I've had some lovely chats. I've done the one-to-ones with agents at conferences. I've done one-to-ones on the phone, and I've sent it slush pile. I've never had any success with slush pile. I think through one or two of the one-to-ones, I've had, good feedback. So I had one agent said that they love me and they could sell me, but they weren't into fantasy. So they were like, write something about medicine, but that was a dragon book and a fairy book. They weren't really into that, which, you get it, it's just not their thing.
Yeah.
And then I had another one from a one-to-one. I'd asked to read it, didn't go anywhere. Another one-to-one, they really liked it, and they liked that I had done a bit of fantasy detective, but they were working for a publishing house and weren't taking unsolicited. So, that's the thing. You've got to get to the agent, and then now it's harder to get to the publisher and then into the publisher. So, I think when I went to that conference, I went to the conference in Winchester, and there was a lot of talk about representation in the publishing world and how it was mainly older Caucasian women. And certainly at the conference that I went to, that was the demographic that was there. That's just the way it is, predominantly. I mean, I think there are more in there, and there's certainly more kind of bursaries and this, that, and the other for those who don't fit that demographic. I haven't been successful with it. So, that's where I am. I know that people said since COVID, it's harder, that there's less publishing houses that are taking unsolicited manuscripts.
Oh yeah. Many of them always say go through agents. But last year I interviewed an author who said she found an agent, and the agent couldn't do anything for her. The agent just had her work there for 1 or 2 years, and she decided to take it back and self-publish. Yeah. So because many times we always think that once you get an agent, it's done.
Yeah.
Because through her, I knew that some agents too just take on your work and promise to represent you and then don't do anything.
Yeah.
Which I found quite strange, but I was happy to have gotten that knowledge, and I said, yeah, I put it on the podcast so for people who are listening to also know that I think it's a 50-50 thing. Yeah.
I mean, you need the right person for you. So I think that was the other thing. Like, I was researching this time, and there were certain agents that I would want to work with. And, I'm a bit older. I'm not being funny. I've got world experience. I've got life experience. I know what I want. I need the right person for me who's going to get me. And, somebody who's incredibly young, and there's no offense about that, but I've done a lot of things. It's probably not going to work. So, I mean, for me, there was a huge amount of power in it, but the sadness is that you don't get that. You don't have the marketing budget. You don't get that visibility. It is much harder to compete, and that's slightly sad. And there is that slightly, like I say, I've had people who know me or whatever who won't do that. I know a couple of people who have got agents. So I think also partly depending on where you live, if you're more London based, there's more social and opportunities to meet. And so, if you're on the circuit with things like Scooby and all of that stuff, or some of the writing groups, you get to know them, and then that leads more into a thing. Some of them are, the books that they've published are not the books that they've got taken on with, are not the books that ended up getting published. Also in Ireland, so I think in the writing group 2 got taken on by a really big agent, and I think one of them has published, but it's not the book that she had in the writing group. And I think that often happens, doesn't it? Your first book isn't the one that gets out there, because it's the one where you make all the mistakes and you don't know what you're doing. And My Dragons was my first book, and I'd given up on it, and then I kind of got this year, and it was time to pick it up again, but it will be a full rewrite, which is probably what it needs. Now I know what I'm doing and I'm a better writer, but I'm not sure. I think because there is a financial outlay with self-publishing, or certainly for me, I need the editing, and with the kids' books you need them. I might not do illustrations if I self-publish the next one, but the book building and then some marketing and that stuff. It's a lot by yourself.
Yeah,
it's very empowering, but you're doing everything.
Yeah, because I tell people, the more you write, the more you discover your niche, your style, and sometimes genres change. I remember when I started writing, I used to write in primary school. And then I started out with comics, doing comics. And those comics used to have, moral undertones. The wicked stepmother, the disobedient child. So I would write all those kind of stories. And then when I got to high school, I think that was the era of Mills and Boone and Keepsakes. We had a lot of teenage romance novels, of that. So I would write teenage romance, and when I get to school, my friends will always say, "Louisa, do you have anything for us to read today?" And it used to be so interesting. Yeah, I would write them in this notebook with my pen, and in class I would have friends. So the maths, you have your maths textbook up there, you would
Yeah.
put notebook
Yeah.
and you're reading. Yeah. So my friends were my readers. And then by the time I finished, I think throughout uni, I was working on just one man. I started a manuscript in high school. Throughout uni, I kept going back and forth, to that man. But I think uni, I was growing. I was growing. I was growing from teenage because I got into uni. I was 17 when I got into uni. So I was really young. So by the time I finished at 21, started working, that was when I finished that book. And then I went, this started from a teenage love story into adulthood. And then I went, but I still haven't found my voice. What kind of stories do I want to write? Okay, I did sociology and anthropology, then international development. So I started to write about women's issues, cultural women's issues, from child marriage to female circumcision, all those kind of stories.
Yeah.
But the publisher that was sending it to, it was one who said to me, these stories seem old. They are stories we've always heard. Do you have anything fresh? And I remember I had this random manuscript that I had just written. In fact, it was about, I was chronicling the event happening on the streets where I attended high school because my dad was in the police force. Right. So we live opposite the army barracks. Things. So there are mistresses, cheating husbands, people owing money, all sorts of business. And I said, okay, well, I have this random manuscript. I don't know if you like it, but I just have it on the back burner. And she said, send it to me. And I sent it to her and she said, I love it. So I went, this is it. So these are the kind of stories now I think I tend to gravitate towards. Fresh stories, things happen really fast, and so on. So so that's one good thing about writing. Like now you said, you have this, you like to write about fairies and dragons, and it continues to develop. You continue to fine tune your skills. That's the beauty of writing and the beauty of, being in that world. But one thing people don't understand about writing is it can be a lonely activity.
Oh, incredibly lonely. I mean, going back to that, I do have some adult stuff too. I'm trying to clear my backlog of the stuff, like the kids stuff that I've had for longer. And I have a tiny bit of medical writing as well, which I'd like to do it more of as well. But it is lonely, it's a lot of time on your own. I mean, I remember last time I was in London, I used to go to a lot of writing groups, which were great because you'd meet up, you'd have your laptop, you'd have a coffee or a piece of cake or some lunch, and then a drink or something or lunch after, and you actually were talking and socializing. So otherwise, you just sat at home or at work. And also they're a really great way of being productive because you kind of, you committed and you were setting that time aside. So, at that time, I was, working full time and doing a PhD or trying to write it up and fit it in. But you're absolutely right, it is. And that's sometimes why I go to the library. One, because I'm stuck at home and there's washing and ironing and all that stuff to do. But it's also I get out and I chat to people when I arrive, librarians, and leave. And it's, we all need human connection. But absolutely, it can be. And, it is wonderful and fun to disappear in those worlds. But we also need to be in our lives too. But I hear you. It can be very lonely.
Very lonely. So for people listening, there might be a bit of confusion here. You spoke about your PhD, and we know that your background is in medicine.
Yeah.
You spoke about the PhD writing about fairies and dragons. So did you relate that to medicine, or it was a PhD in creative writing you did?
No, I did a medical PhD, so it was on HIV and drug use, so it was entirely different. I mean, in some ways, they're basically big projects, but very different style of writing. Yes, I mean, a PhD in itself is an entirely different beast. I liken it to a bit of an inner battle. So you basically, for me, it felt like battling myself. And there were times I was very close to walking away from it because it was just tough. And I didn't have the easiest of PhDs, but for me, it was important to finish it just for myself, to know that I had done that. And with some of my books too, for me, I started this journey with them, and like you say, they are your children. I have no ego about feedback, so I'm very open to feedback, and I've never had an ego even with my medical work. If I don't know what's wrong with somebody, I will ask for help because I just want people to get better. But it can be tricky to know, because you can have. I remember one of the groups somebody had posted that they'd got feedback from editor and they'd got accepted by an agent, but the agent wanted them to entirely change the whole book. And it can be tricky to know because there's an essence to a book. So I switched publishing team New Year's Eve and I got a lovely new editor. And I remember he was messaging me, we were messaging, and I was talking about going back to do my first book, The Dragons. And he said, keep that first edit, the first version that you've got, because there is something about the energy of a story. And, if you completely rewrite it and totally change it, it loses that energy and immediacy and the part of the writing. And I went and had a look because I thought, oh God, this book is terrible. I started writing it 13 years ago. And he was right, there was something in it, so I had a look and I pulled some bits back and thought, oh yeah, no, this is good and this is good and I can use that, and this is how I change this. So I probably totally digressed there on what you asked me, sorry.
No. So what are some of the challenges self-published authors encounter when trying to put their books out there, when trying to sell their books? Because I know you had mentioned marketing.
Yeah.
For me, I try to leverage on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, a bit of Twitter. I think now it's called X, yes, a bit of that. Yeah, but what are some of the challenges? Because I know for me, marketing is not my thing. I struggle with it. Yeah. What are some of the challenges?
It's being visible and selling books, so that I think it's never been harder to be more visible. And there is a lot of people there there's a lot of scammers in the groups. People try and say, look, pay me when you publish, you get all these messages, especially on Instagram, people going, $10 and, you can get a review and I've got 1,000 viewers and all of this stuff. So it can be really hard to know what to do. And, you want to be successful. You want your book to get out there. And you're getting all these messages of, I only charge this and that. So I think it's challenging to know. Like, I didn't know about the whole art process of my first one and, how the traditional publishers get reviews beforehand. And so that builds up a bit of a buzz. So I'm trying to do that with a second one. But obviously, if you're a reviewer, you would much rather have something come out from a publishing house rather than a self-published author or a well-known author. The social media's channels, absolutely, like you say, it can be hard going to get visibility and to reach your target audience. So certainly, like you and me, if we're going for children or children's books, then those children don't tend to be on like that. It's the parents that you have to convince or access, and it's how to get them and make connections and get your book across. So it's all of that. And like, my background is medicine. It's not social media and marketing and all that. So it can be really challenging to know where to invest your money and who to trust. And there's no guarantees with anything, really, I suppose.
Okay, so how do you think we can support each other? Because I always ask authors this. How do you think we can support each other?
I think you've kind of put it there. It is supporting each other. So I think it's being in groups. So this podcast, for example, is wonderful. There's another author I know that does podcasts. I do read alouds on my social media, and for me that's important because I know I've looked after plenty of adults who are illiterate, and so I'm passionate about sparking children's imagination through storytelling, and I get to read other people's books and their books are visible. Now, I obviously don't have like 20,000 followers, but somebody might read it and enjoy that and remember that. I'm in a lovely group, new authors, new releases. So there's a lovely lady that runs it, Amy Dowd, and she puts a lot of time into that with new books, and people often have like free ebooks and stuff, so I'll always share that. I'm always looking for something to share on social media, and it's great to share other people's work, and to be connected and to meet other authors. So I've met some absolutely wonderful self-published authors in the last couple of months who are all like, yeah, we'd love to help out with your book, and I'm really happy to share. And it's about community and connection, I think, to be honest with you. So I don't know if I have the answer, but I think helping each other out, that's what we're all here for, isn't it?
Yeah, I think in terms of helping each other out, I think that is I always feel that is tricky because I've had conversations with other authors because when I started writing for children, because for me, I write for adults. I keep telling people I'm not a children's author, but of recent, now I've put out 4 children's books, so now I know, okay, Louisa, you can actually do this. You can write for kids. And I realized that when I was looking for information on how to market children's books and all of that, I couldn't really find the kind of information I was looking for. That was why I started this podcast. And when I started this podcast, I remember I did season 1, season 2 for free. I didn't charge a penny, nothing. But you realize that these things come at a price, that there's costs. You need editing. Initially, I would sit and do my best and try to edit, but the hours it takes, so you find yourself, you have to get an external editor, you have to get an assistant sometimes to reach out to people, go back and forth. So these are the challenges.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So when I started doing the Read Aloud, I started buying the books and asking for permission, and now I do ask for people to send me books because it was costing me money and I was leaving a review. So I'm probably a bit too nice because I just want to help people. But I hear what you're saying. My experience, there are plenty like that, and there is that kind of slight clique in the self-publishing that have done very well, and they want to charge, and I get that, but it's like a slight clique of okay, you're not up with us, so we're not going to share with you, or you can pay for this and that. Not mentioning names. For me, I just have to focus on that. I'm trying to focus on manifesting that I am supported and I'm attracting in the right people, and that it's mutually beneficial and it's aligned.
I think I've heard of that because I joined a lot of Facebook groups with children's authors, and I've seen people come on there to complain that, oh, this person said he or she is an illustrator, and I found out that the work the person sent belongs to someone else. I've had this author I interviewed who said she was working with this illustrator, I think somewhere in Bangladesh, and she just stopped hearing from the person. So it's tough. So my thinking is, if we support each other, I think we can go really, really far. But when you talk to authors and they tell you of their experience, you go, okay, what's going on? Why aren't we helping each other? Why are we hoarding all this information? Look, if everybody, like my people have this saying that if everybody becomes stars, there will still be enough space in the sky. Everyone.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So how do you think we can support each other better?
I think it's about community and connection. So it's taken me a while to get there. Like I say, this lovely group that Amy set up, the authors' new releases, I really like sharing the books on there. It helps me because I don't have content to share every day in social media, and there may be people out there who can't afford to buy books because of circumstances, and there are often free books out there, and it builds communities. Angela, that lovely author that I've met, we message about other stuff, and she, like I say, I was really like, what am I going to do? My Fairies is my heart song book because it's a book about being bullied and having your wings clipped, and it happens to us all, and it happened to me, and I was like, I need to get this out. There's something in me that's saying, I love Flora, she's a wonderful book, but she was like my starter and this is like my main course. I need to get this one out and then see where I land. And I actually ended up, it was beautiful. She connected me with the most beautiful, wonderful people, and it's just flowed. I think it probably has taken me time to bed in and know who are the right people for me and who I can trust. And unfortunately, not everyone is as altruistic and wants to help. Like you say, some people want to hoard the information. Some people want to not do things with integrity. And I suppose all we can do is just move forward with the intention that we are doing that. And I find that every time I give, it always comes back to me in a different way.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I think I had shared... I'd shared quite a few things, or I've got this crystal jewelry. She's a lovely Swedish jeweler. I love her.
Let me see. I love it. I'm obsessed with jewelry. Oh,
She's incredible, a Swedish lady. She makes this
share the
beautiful
link.
jewelry.
Share the link with me. I
I
love it.
will. I mean, they're not cheap, but she hand makes them. She channels them for you, and she has this competition. I'll show you the link. She's got a competition to win a free necklace if you share and link and post and tag a few people. It's incredible work. So I shared it and I tagged a few people who I thought would like the jewelry, who commented, because it's also free at the moment. And she was like, "Oh, thank you so much." And then. Donna Ashworth, the poet, I don't know whether or not you know her, incredible lady. She started self-publishing. She's just got the most wonderful Facebook. She runs it and she connects with people and chats, and I've connected with her a few times. She did share my book, and she was saying she'd been in the New York Best Times list for 6 weeks, and I hadn't seen it because my son had been poorly, and I just commented late going, "Oh my goodness, congratulations, that's so wonderful." And then she said, "Look, share your stuff." So I put my book down and she said, "I'm buying it now." And that just made my day. I literally cried yesterday because it was just wonderful. Do you know what I mean? So I just feel like it may come back in a different way, but I'm getting teary now. When you do that, it kind of does. And one of the friends I tagged in this post messaged me, and she said, "Look, I'm not really on social media yet." She'd been off. She had a couple of she'd not been so well, and I've been thinking, look, I need to connect them. And she said, "Look, please, I actually would like to get one of the necklaces. The money doesn't matter." And so I messaged my jeweler friend and said, "Look, who I've not met, who I've only met online," and said, "Look, she was like, we've got to meet." I said, "Look, this friend I'm going to connect you to doing that," and she goes, "Thank you so," she was just like, "Thank you so much. I can't, we need to meet." And I'm like, "I agree." So for me, it always comes back. I think when you do it with integrity, it comes back. It's taken me a bit of time to get that. It may well be in a different way, and for me, it's just that I didn't share her stuff to get somebody to buy my book. I did it because I love what she does, and they've been so helpful with me. And I wear this when I go to schools, and the amount of kids, if they're whatever, will come and touch it and feel it. And so it's also a good kind of distraction. Do you know what I mean? When you're in schools and they might be a bit overwhelmed, and when I do interviews, and if I can help somebody who does something beautiful, then that's come back to me, and that somebody beautiful who started where I started bought my book. For me, that's just a wonderful thing. Okay. And I hope that I will be in her position one day and be able to help somebody who's starting out, from where I've been. There was another lady who might have followed her, and she's got quite a big following, 55,000 on Facebook, and she was posting, I think over Christmas, saying that she was looking to share about people's stuff. And I said, "Well, look, this is my book if you want to." And I don't know whether or not she shared or not. It doesn't really matter. And we were chatting about books, and she said that she was writing hers. Her posts are really, really funny, but she writes about midlife and menopause. And I was like, she was asking how you did it. And I said, "Well, I self-published." And I was talking about ARC reviewers. And she was like, "Well, how do you do that without a book?" And I said, "Well, if you've got a following, then you can start teeing people up and, getting them ready, and then sending your book out to them before if they like it, and share it." And, I was just talking about doing it. I said, "Look, we'll come back to me near the time. I'm more than happy to share." I didn't know what I was doing with my first book, and nobody really told me. And now I'm like, okay, I need to delay it a bit and get some ARC reviewers. And I've been messaging people who I think would like fairies or teachers, and a host of people that hopefully will help out. But I don't mind sharing that stuff. Okay. It's no skin off me. It's no skin off my nose if I tell somebody what I've learned. She's writing about menopause, and it doesn't really matter if she's writing kids' books. There's plenty of space for us all, and her energy signature is different to mine, and who she appeals to is going to be different to who I appeal to.
Okay, that makes sense. So would you like to read a portion of your book to us?
Oh, okay.
Because we have so many interesting characters. Because I had set out initially, I was just thinking, do we talk about the book? But again, if we give away too many spoilers, then people are going to know everything that has taken place in the book. So mine is, I want everybody to go and buy Flora Investigates, The Case of the Missing Gold Eggs.
Thank you. I'm trying to find where to read.
Okay, let me see.
Oh, hang on. can I do this? I've just opened a page. It's 22. I like the number.
Okay.
Right.
And page 22.
I pick up the gold egg because we know there's gold eggs.
Okay.
So I pick up gold egg. It's heavy and cool despite the warm Florentine sun. It feels smooth in my hand and not at all like a normal egg. This must be a joke. But why go to the effort of fashioning gold into an egg shape? I brush the egg with a paintbrush, expecting the gold to come off, but no. Then I try to rub it with some water and tissue. I've told you it's gold. I can get you the paperwork if you want. I ignore Lucia and scrape the egg with the side of one of my nails, but nothing scratches off. My forehead pounds. Lucia can't be right. Chickens do not lay gold eggs. This case is getting stranger by the minute.
Thank you. So are you working on anything new?
I am hoping to pick up my dragons. So I have some adult books that I really want to work on. I've got loads of stuff actually. I mean, there's one I want to write called The Monster in My Family that I'd started because we all have monsters in our families, you know. And a little farty elf for my eldest, about a little elf joining the annual farting competitions against monsters and ogres. But I also have some adult stuff. One is a book stalking, somebody who gets stalked, and a book about a sacred prostitute that I saw when I went to Sicily, but they'll probably be a few years off. So I'm hoping to pick up my dragon. So it's not, I suppose it's not new, but it's redoing an old one. So it'll probably be an entirely different book, is my plan.
Okay. And what do you hope to see for your books? What future do you hope to see? What do you hope to see happen to this book?
I hope that it reaches people who need it. So there are so many children out there who maybe aren't encouraged or don't think they're good enough or don't think they can do it. And what I hope is that for children and adults who need that they find her and it sparks something in them and that they know that they do deserve their dreams and they are good enough. That's really what I hope. I mean, obviously, I would love to sell millions of copies of books and just sit and write full time because I love writing, but I also love going out and mixing with people. So I've really enjoyed getting out into schools because that's what I miss about not working as a doctor at the moment is chatting to people and meeting people and, you know, connecting with people from all over the world. That's for me a really beautiful thing. So yeah, that's, you know, yeah, of course I'd love to sell millions of books and be a multi-millionaire. Why not?
Me too.
Yeah.
So for people who want to buy your book, before I let you go, for people who want to buy your book, where can they find your book? So let us know where we can find it and give us your social media handles too for people who want to follow you.
Wonderful. So it's available on Amazon. So of Amazon worldwide as an ebook, on Kindle Unlimited and paperback. There are a couple of bookshops I'm in. So there's a lovely indie bookshop in Australia called Get Lost in Books. He does the market. I am in Right Blend in Liverpool. I am in Book Dragon in the Northeast. They just do indie authors, so they do some really great stuff. And I'm in a local little arty spiritual book in Chester called Rainforest. So that's it at the moment. I would love to get into more bookshops, but as you know, the plight of a self-published author is not easy in that sense. And my social media, I am on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I am on Instagram, and I have put a lot of my read alouds on YouTube. So that's Bedtime Stories by Saloni. I do have another lot to put up.
At Bedtime Stories by Saloni.
Yes, and I'm Saloni Surah and Saloni Surah author on Facebook, at Saloni Book on Instagram, and TikTok. I think I'm Saloni S.
So I want to say a very big thank you to you. It was great. Everybody, this is Saloni, the author of Flora Investigates, The Case of the Missing Gold Eggs. She's already told us that the books are available on Amazon, and also we'll be sharing her social media handle. So have a lovely Saturday, Saloni. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.